Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is CF Claire and I am working on the second draft of my small town shifter romance novel, and this is a little bit of a departure from my usual style of vlogging, but I'm coming to you from having completed a challenge that I set for myself. The challenge was to try to fast draft the first 8 chapters of the book in 5 days. It went really well. Much better than I ever could have thought, especially considering that the best I've ever done as far as like progress in a book is writing 1 chapter a day, which was very difficult. And that was with this project for the first draft. But I've learned a lot, and I'm working off of a very fleshed out, revised outline, which is why I can do this. This is not to say that this is the right way to draft for anyone else, obviously. But I thought it would be kind of fun to share my thoughts on how the chapters went, because some of them were much easier than others, and just kind of things that I left on purpose, knowing it was bad. I don't know. So let's jump into it. The prologue was 1,647 words, and it took 50 minutes total in a 20-minute time chunk and 3 10-minute time chunks, because I'm home with a 4.5-year-old like all the time, and there's just like, I'm also just like a baby when it comes to drafting, early stages of drafts, where I just like hate it. So I have to go in small time increments, otherwise I will be like, oh no, 30 minutes is too long, I better not even start. So what? That's the way I am. What are you gonna do? So I am pulling up my manuscript, and I'm gonna just like skim over each chapter and just like give some thoughts on them as I go through it. I really liked the prologue. That was probably one of my favorite chapters that I did. I completely changed the protagonist's backstory, and I really like this. I actually even really liked a lot of the prose, which is crazy. I hope the trucks outside aren't like coming through in the audio, you know? What can you do? Yeah, I actually really liked the prologue, and it wasn't that hard to write. There's a lot of like action going on, so I wonder if that was part of it. Yeah, I really liked the way that the protagonist's voice came through in this. Probably the most out of any of the other chapters. Chapter 1, that is from the love interest perspective. That took 1 hour and 5 minutes, all told, to write 1,565 words. That one was much harder to write. I changed the personality of the love interest quite drastically, and I also gave them a different background, and I'm still in the process of figuring out how that plays out in the story. So this was harder to write. It was harder to get into his head. I didn't like the setup of it. Yeah, the conversation is like quite stilted and forced, and I don't like that, but there's a reason I'm doing this, and it's because I just have to get an iteration of the story like this. So now is not the time for me to be like, how do I fix stilted conversations? Chapter 2 was our protagonist again. For chapter 2, I'm just going to count the new words that I wrote, because I actually really liked and kept the first half of the chapter that I had written for the first draft, but I changed the way that the second half of it played out, so I'm just going to count those new words that I did, which is 749 words, and that took 30 minutes. And I'm still like feeling it out. There are a lot of things that I changed, and I'm still like, I'm dipping my toes in as I write, so I'm like soft writing her son's personality, because I'm still like playing around with if I want them to be having this certain dynamic or not. I had previously had them have this very like loving relationship, the protagonist and her son, and obviously like they do, but I think I want to have it be a lot more antagonistic, where it's like you love your kids, but sometimes they have certain traits that just drive you like absolutely up the wall. And I thought that would be a really good dynamic to show things about the protagonist, because one of the things I disliked the most about the first draft was that they're supposed to be a very prickly, sort of like bad-tempered person, but it's supposed to be very relatable and very like sympathetic. And for some reason, like the way that I had set up scenes made her not come across as prickly and instead come across as wounded. And I was like, this is not the right tone at all. So I'm trying to like find ways where she can be prickly or like lose her temper in a relatable, understandable way and sort of create the impression I'm trying to create with her. So I'm like playing around. I don't know if we're gonna keep this or not. So chapter 2 was like, it was fine. Chapter 3 was her point of view again. That one was 1,501 words, and that took 1 hour and 5 minutes. And again, I was like playing around with some ideas that I don't know if I want to keep them, so I'm not writing very much. What I mean by that is that I think I want to set up a reason early on why we would know her opinion about like love and being in relationships. And a way to do that was, I think, like someone at her work might have like asked her out recently, and it's like awkward because she just like very off the cuff was like, no. And then she was like, oh no, whoops, that didn't come out very well. And they have to work together and it's like awkward. So, but I don't know if I want to keep that. So I like wrote a sentence or two about it, you know? That's what I mean when I say I'm like playing around with some stuff. Sometimes there's just like a sentence or two and I'll deepen it or I'll cut it later. And yeah, there's like a relationship that she has, a friendship with a coworker, and I don't know if I want to keep that because she's very prickly and I don't know that I want her to have a friendship. So there's like some experimental stuff in this chapter. So it was okay. I think this one was a little bit harder to write. This chapter is where we see the love interest for the first time. It's not technically their meet cute. I guess it's like the first impression. I don't love how that came out. But like I said, this is a fast draft. That's why we're doing it. Chapter 4 was the love interest perspective again. It was 817 words and it took 40 minutes. Noticeably quite a bit shorter than the other chapters because I wasn't sure how I wanted the situation to go down. There's a certain interaction that happens that I don't know exactly why it's going on. I just know that I need it to happen, and so it'll get fleshed out however I decide it's like the reason it's gonna happen, you know. But this is where we see the relationship really for the first time between one of the other people in the group of friends that he has. And if you're not familiar, the whole idea of this story is that it's the first in an interconnected standalone series between a group of male shifter friends. So this is like another, he's going to be the lead in his book whenever that happens. So we get to see their friendship here, and I liked the banter between them. Really fun. That was definitely the easiest to write from this chapter. And then chapter 5 was the last chapter of the first sequence, and it had the inciting event and the true meet cute playing out. So that's from the protagonist's point of view. That took 50 minutes to write 1,292 words. I liked the voiciness in this. There was some good characterization that came out, so that was fun. But one of the things, notably, that I do not feel came through in this first draft was that I want it to be very clear, like, her thought process and how she, like, slips into certain, like, modes of thinking, because she's very analytical and she kind of, like, assesses the situation and changes her persona to like fit the situation to get the outcome that she wants, and that like didn't come across at all, so that's too bad. But that's fine. That's like not what this draft is about, but that is noticeably missing. Oh, this okay, the big thing about this chapter is that, so there's reasons why it's very understandable that the main character thinks that she is threatened and in danger from the love interest, and she's not. But it is very relatable why she would think that, and he doesn't have a very good approach. When the meet cute is playing out, I had in my outline that she was going to pull out a gun and threaten to shoot him if he didn't like back off. And as I was writing it, I was like, no, she would shoot him. So she both shot him and shot at him a couple more times when she wasn't supposed to. So I don't know if that's gonna stay. And like I said, like, there's reasons he doesn't it all, whatever, like, it makes sense. Chapter 6 was his perspective reacting. Actually, okay, so this was possibly my favorite chapter. And the reason for that is because there's reasons why he needs to call another one of his friends and get his help with something over the phone. And so we see not only the interaction between him and the friend who is physically there with him, but the friend who is like on the phone helping him. And there's such a fun dynamic between all three of them. And it was so fun to write. The friend that he's on the phone with is Alex, who is going to be the hero of book 2 in the series. And actually, I had written the first draft of his book before Project Chance last year for a lot of reasons. And so I am very familiar with him, and I love him so much. And it is like a super, super fun interaction. I'm so excited about it. But this just words were flying off the page. It was so, so fun. And that's probably why it's the longest chapter. It's 1,964 words. It took 1 hour and 15 minutes. Love this chapter. Oh my gosh, I love it. Chapter 7. This was a bad chapter. But let's talk about the reason it was a bad chapter. So as I was writing, it's very murky, because if you're familiar with story structure, a lot of times you have, after the inciting event, you have the debate where there is a choice that the main character is trying to decide between, some dilemma of what to do. And when they finally make that choice, it's at the point of no return, at that 25% mark. That's very classic. And the debate that I had thought she would be having is do I stay in town with all this crazy stuff happening because of XYZ, or is it is the water too hot and I need to skip town and get the hell out of here? So she was going to be debating the pros and cons. And somehow early on, I don't even know which chapter, but almost immediately she was well, I have to leave. So there goes the debate, right? So so I don't think it can happen there. And so what this chapter was supposed to be doing was having her really think through what the debate would be, the pros and cons, and really struggling with what she's going to do. But since I had already previously in another chapter been she needs to get the hell out of here, then it was we're rehashing things. I don't know. So I purposefully left it at such a low word count, being I don't know, I think I need to see it as a whole and see where it fits better. So didn't love that, and that's fine. That's fine. Chapter 8 was from his perspective. That took 45 minutes. It was 1,001 words. I don't like the interactions between them. There's some confrontation stuff that happens between the two of them, and I don't have a good enough grasp on how I want this iteration of the love interest to speak and act that I feel it did not come across at all the way I wanted to. So that's fine again. But yeah, I'm not satisfied with this one. Also, notably throughout this, they're not really reacting to each other attraction wise, I'm really skimping on all the details of setting and a lot of reactive stuff, because I just want to get the main meat of the action and dialogue. And so anyways, just that's noticeably missing. And then finally, chapter 9. This is the final chapter of the second sequence, which is the culmination of the end of the first quarter, and this is where the point of no return is reached, and she's supposed to come to her decision about what she's doing between the debate of is she staying or leaving or whatever. So I don't love the way events transpired in this, but the important thing to remember for me is that the events that I want to happen are what I'm writing. So the actual action is what I want it to be, at least for right now, what I think is going to happen. And so then when I walk away from this second draft and come back, I'm going to think about what's a better way to show this. But I need this bad version in front of me first. Yeah, another chapter that I didn't really like that much. Did I tell you the stats? It took 35 minutes. It was 1,009 words. I'm still getting used to the interactions between the two of them, and so I'm not satisfied with how that's coming across on the page. So, anyways, it's fine. I did achieve my goal. I exceeded my goal. I had thought I wanted to do 8 chapters in 5 days. I ended up starting on Saturday, so it was 6 days, and it went so well that I pushed it to 10 chapters in 6 days. So, very proud. That's great. Altogether, it was 12,351 words. And I'm going to take a break on the weekend. And probably push a little bit less hard next week because it was a little bit tight fitting all of this stuff in. But I hope that was like semi-interesting. I'd be curious if you have ever like fast drafted, like what your impressions were, if it was for you or if it was not for you. Anyways, I hope your writing's going well. I hope life's going well, and I'll see you in the next one.